Hello, I'm Vine and welcome to Overthinking. Today's topic is a question. Would a Stellaris empire survive in the Warhammer 40k universe? Short answer, depends on the specific empire. And for the long answer, you have to watch the whole video. But before we start, a disclaimer. Technically, I'm not a Warhammer 40k nerd. I never read any books, I don't own any models, played only Dawn of War, and done that literally once because a friend just wanted to show this game to me. I've lost to the Imperial Guard that day and decided that I will not invest any more time in this game if I suck this much. Still, because of the internet, I can name all 18 Primarchs, or 19 if you are considering Alfarius and Omegon to be different people. I know Orc reproduction cycle and color theory, and I know how warp works and that living saints are god emperor's demons. My point is, I have the knowledge base to overthink the topic, but still feel free to correct me in the comments if you are part of the fandom, as my data comes mainly from secondary sources. As for Stellaris, I think I know my stuff. Now, the scenario is simple. A Stellaris empire of any design and in any point of development is transported to the Warhammer 40k universe with everything it has. Would this empire be able to survive in this grimdark setting? I divided my answer into 5 parts. The first part is the scale. In many crossover scenarios that we can find on YouTube, 40k crushes other universes with only sheer size. Individual planets here are often droplets of water in the vast ocean that is the 40k galaxy. Here is no different. In Stellaris, we can have 1000 star systems maximum. In 40k, that number would be probably only a small subsector of the Empire of Man. Instant death then? Well, for early game Stellaris empires, yes. Others might have a chance, because even if Warhammer has bigger numbers and nearly unlimited resources, it's still a universe divided between big and small powers that are further divided between many factions inside them. So an established endgame empire may secure a place for itself between those powers and even thrive in its space. It still must be a wide empire with many worlds to stand up to the 40k scale, but the key to this lays in the second part. The technology. If we are talking about Stellaris endgame empire, in 40k universe standards it would be a level of humanity in the early, or maybe even advanced, dark age of technology. And this is actually more advanced level than most powers in 40k. This is because many races regressed and their technological progress got stagnant to almost ridiculous levels. Notable exceptions here are Necrons and Tau. The first ones are advanced way beyond everything, and the only reason why they didn't bring Galaxy to its knees is because Necrons don't really care about Galaxy domination and are occupied with dynasty power struggles. Tau, on the other hand, are a 40k early game empire. So yeah, as technology goes, the endgame empire can stand up to other forces. Moreover, as Tau proves, small empires but with advanced tech can survive in the 40k universe. So a Stellaris one has also a real survival chance if the tech itself does not cause its downfall. And speaking of downfalls, it's time to talk about ascension paths. Currently in Stellaris we have 4 of these. Each one can drastically change any empire that decides to take it. Let's start with the one that will be most suicidal in 40k universe. Psionic. In Warhammer we have 2 significant examples of psionically ascended factions. Race of Eldar and Thousand Suns Legion. And both of them got screwed because of this. Eldar, thanks to deep connection to the warp, murder fact Slanesh into existence. Now, because of this, they are not only to unable use the most of their psionic powers and technology, but also cannot even die in peace. Meanwhile, Thousand Suns Legion just ignored risks of the warp. I'm not only talking about Magnus making deals with Zinch, but also usage of familiars within Legion and Aramin casting a rubric spell later on. All of these examples are instances of Warp OSHA violations. The pattern here is clear. Psionic power makes you vulnerable to chaos, and psionically ascendant Empire that only had experience with Calm Shroud would be extremely vulnerable, especially if they made a pact with an entity that can merge, willingly or not, with one of the Chaos Gods. Of course, there is a chance that Shroud and its entities would stay separate from the warp and become an anti-warp. But to assume such a thing is like assuming that you roll natural 20 twice in a row. Next is genetic ascension path. This one has potential. Examples of genetically ascendant factions in 40k universe are Dark Eldar, Tyrannids, and partially humans. What we can see from it is that messing with genetics is a great way to upgrade your population. Space Marines are a fine example of this. But cloning is a risky business if you don't know that in 40k, souls are tied to individual genetic makeup. And I seriously doubt that any Stellaris Empire would have knowledge of this upon its arrival. This one fact could cause a cloning crisis where individual clones would start dying in mysterious circumstances, Final Destination style, just because the universe would see them as dead people or something. And that's only one thing that could happen. Fortunately, fixing this problem is extremely easy. Just mix genes before that growing population, like everyone else in 40k do. Souls that come from this process are often small, but never the same. That's enough to live and thrive. Time for the cybernetic ascension path. Perfect examples of this ascension are the Adeptus Mechanicus, and this is actually the first ascension that doesn't have any major downsides in 40k universe, but it also does not provide anything visibly better than the genetic one. If I had to sum it up in one word, it will be reliable. This ascension is just reliable, and that makes it a good candidate for 40k survival tool. But the last one is the best, and that's Synthetic Ascension Path. Unfortunately, here we have a narrative problem, because there is only one example of this ascension in 40k universe, the Necrons. And this is a very bad example, because to translate the Necrons to Stellaris mechanics, we will have to ascend them synthetically twice for double bonuses and bodies from living metal. Any Stellaris Empire that comes to this setting would never be on this level, we just do not have option for it. Still, this ascension is quite good. Soulless machines don't have to care about chaos and its corruption, since even if they are not immune to it, they are simply not a valuable target. Moreover, the same goes for Tyrannids, because metal is not a biomass. That's -2 on the list of major existential threats. So yeah, the 40k survival build is coming together quite nicely. Wide, synthetically ascendant endgame empire. Now, time to address the elephant in the room. Diplomacy. They say that in the grim darkness of the future there is only war. That's not true. There are also non-aggression pacts, alliances, rivalries, and enemy prioritization. Examples would be Eldari Craftworld Kellor that have the rite of passage through Empire space, and also Tau Empire, which still exists just because it's considered a low priority target for other galactic forces. So, the first job of our Stellaris Empire is to not make itself a target. And as all Stellaris players know, that means No genocidal play, no crisis play, no aggressive conquest, nor rivalries. Peaceful, self-centered play. To be honest, for not provoking other factions in 40k, inward perfection would be the best, if not for the one tiny detail. Information is a weapon, and diplomacy is a good way to arm yourself with it. Of course, I'm talking mainly about espionage here, but potential deals like the one Kellor has with the Empire would be something that the Stellaris Empire have to grab at any opportunity. And for that we need diplomacy and subterfuge tradition trees, perfect for diplomatic and informational self-defense. Now, the last part is organization, and in this one part, the Stellaris Empire beats all 40k galaxy just by being an empire from economic game. As players, we technically all min-max our empires to be the best organized empire from them all. Translating it to Warhammer 40k, it will be like the realms of Ultramar if Robute Gulliman were a spirit capable of possessing anybody in a leadership role. So another required element is the player. And since we ascended this empire synthetically, we can assume that the player's spirit is accumulated knowledge that is uploaded to the main processor of every empire leader. Moreover, in Stellaris, we also have hyperlanes, hyperrelays and gateways. So, in terms of logistics, our empire would also be at the top, but not necessarily the best, like in overall organization, since webway could be faster than hyperrelays. Still, Stellaris space travel is way safer and more reliable than 40k alternatives. Now, summarizing all of it, the Stellaris empires can survive in the Warhammer 40k universe, but to give it the best survival chance, it would have to be a wide, synthetically ascended endgame player empire with diplomacy and subterfuge tradition trees finished. That will be the end of my overthinking today. So, dear viewer, do you agree with it? I know that some of you may have different opinions, maybe even better 40k survival builds. Write them in the comments. Especially your builds with possible survival scenarios. I like to read stuff like this. And for now, see you in the next video.